slow him down or possibly even execute a pit maneuver. But you can see the speeds are continuing. Can we put up the speed tracker? I'm not sure if we'll get quite an accurate reading, but it looks like he's doing about 45 miles per hour there. So slowing down for another intersection, not blowing through this red light, slowing down for the red light, and then continuing with caution there. So several units continuing northbound Vermont Avenue. We're going to continue to try and figure out what the original want was here. We don't know why they originally tried to pull him over, but what I can tell you is that there are several agencies kind of competing for jurisdiction here, trying to figure out who's going to take this over. Right now it's CHP right behind him, guys. Yeah, just a few miles back, he actually slowed down, let a passenger out of the car. He or she went running away from the vehicle, and then the pursuit continued on. We have no way of knowing whether there's anybody else inside that car other than the driver. We haven't gotten a close enough view yet of that driver's seat, but at least one passenger who was in the car exiting the vehicle as this pursuit now continues up Vermont Avenue. Looks like 4 CHP units staying with him again through another red light. You can see those units behind him kind of protectively blocking traffic, and I would not be surprised if we start to see some South L.A. units start to block off intersections ahead of him. So you've got about 5 units right behind him. They would love to be able to get units in position ahead of him to prevent any kind of cross-traffic collisions as he continues to go through these red lights. It's not a high-speed chase at this point, but he certainly is showing very, very reckless disregard for other driver safety, even though he's slowing down for some of those red lights, just going right through them, and at times, as I mentioned, up on sidewalks and in oncoming lanes of traffic, like right here. Look at that. He is now on the southbound side going north on Vermont Avenue. Very dangerous situation, definitely escalating the pursuit here, and what that does is it puts law enforcement in a position where they are less likely to cancel the pursuit. They're less likely to just let him go, because now he is really posing a major danger to public safety in the middle of rush hour. Very. We're not sure what the original one was, quite frankly. We believe it came out of the Bell Gardens area. I'm not sure if it was Bell Gardens PD that was trying to initiate the pursuit, or if this has been California Highway Patrol's pursuit the whole time. Actually, I'm being told now that it started with L.A. County Sheriff's Department. So the L.A. County Sheriffs were in pursuit. CHP eventually took it over, and it ended up in the Huntington Park area as we were flying down through South L.A. He eventually made it all the way down to the Linwood area, headed west on Imperial Highway before going all the way back north on Vermont. He has been on Vermont the entire time we have been on the air with this pursuit. You'll have to excuse the shot because we're actually going to fly around LAX's approach path. But again, for no particular reason at all, you saw at one point there, he just randomly went into oncoming lanes of traffic. He didn't have anybody in his way there. He just went into the southbound lanes for no reason, really recklessly, and just, again, just one of the many dangerous maneuvers he's shown here. Yeah, there was at least one passenger jumping out of the vehicle a little bit earlier in the pursuit. No way of knowing if there's anybody else left in the car other than the driver, but there was at least one passenger who he did let out at one of those intersections in I want to say the Southgate area. But as we come around now, hopefully we'll be able to get a better shot. I believe he has made a turn, trying to get some more information as we speak, but I believe he has made a turn. I'm not sure if he's going west or east. It looks like that CHP helicopter. Okay, so he's still going northbound. Still going northbound. I guess he's still on Vermont. So approaching 54th Street. Vermont and 54th is his location. He's still continuing northbound here. We'll go ahead and try and come up the east side of this pursuit and hope to get a better view there. There he is right there, northbound Vermont, and it looks like, just from that shot there, it looks like he's picked up a little bit of speed. You saw that red Honda CR-V now going back in the correct lanes. It looks like he was, once again, it looks like he was going the wrong way. So still on Vermont Avenue, all over the road, and there is some traffic on this Thursday afternoon. A lot of people need to keep an eye on this and just stay out of the way here. This is a dangerous one. Yeah, you know, they have given the go-ahead in this situation to execute a pit maneuver if they have the opportunity. The problem is the opportunity requires no other motorists in immediate danger, no pedestrians crossing the street, and the speeds have to slow down to about 30, 35 miles per hour. It looks like that unit right there may be closing in on him, and if he slows down just enough, we might actually see that pit attempt to try and spin this car around here. Coming up on another intersection, that's going to be Vermont Avenue and Vernon. The car squeezing through on the right. Another red light. That's the pit attempt, and it looks like he didn't really have a good shot there. So it continues north. He continues to push the pedal to the metal here and kind of accelerate through that pit attempt. Eastbound turn on King there, yep, right south of the campus. So he's now made that turn towards the Harbor Freeway. He's going to come up on the 110 freeway here and have an opportunity to get on the freeway. I can tell you if he does that, both the north and southbound lanes of the 110 freeway are pretty much jam-packed right now. He won't get very far very fast if he does decide to get on the freeway, and that will happen here in the next 30 to 40 seconds. I presume he's going to stay on King and just continue this pursuit. It looked like as we got that glimpse, as he made that turn, we kind of were able to make out a passenger in that passenger seat, unconfirmed, but it did look to be somebody in that passenger seat. Right, so he stopped just short of the freeway and made that southbound turn on Figueroa, paralleling the 110 freeway. It looks like traffic is pretty sparse on the southbound lanes, but really to perform that pit safely, those northbound lanes are going to have to be cleared as well. You want to limit any damage to city property, you want to limit any damage to parked cars, but if they have the opportunity, we might see it here. We might see well, now it looks like he's coming up on some more traffic. And look at that. Every time he comes up on traffic, he just goes right around it. He slowly kind of crawls around either over the WL lines, into oncoming lanes, just kind of squeezing through, trying to evade these CHP officers. Yeah, southbound on Figueroa. Now he's kind of really done a complete zigzag up and down South LA, first on the east side of the 110 freeway, then back up Vermont, and now he's basically retracing his steps, but he's essentially covering the same real estate, going up and down South LA, up and down either side of the 110 freeway. More CHP units joining the pursuit here. I presume they are, well, the best information I have is that they are indeed waiting for LAPD to eventually take this over, although it does not appear that those units have arrived yet. We've heard several calls out for LAPD to take this over. Right now, it is still all three of those vehicles right there, at least, are all CHP cruisers. I'm sorry, Giovanna, somebody was speaking over you. One more time. No, unfortunately not, but just based on the driving alone, the reckless driving, that's enough to continue this pursuit, especially the type of driving we've seen. Unfortunately, we don't know what other crimes he may have committed. Maybe they ran the plates and it came back to a warrant, or possibly, we don't even know if it's his vehicle, quite frankly. There's so many unknowns. Presumably, CHP at this point does know, does have that information, but at this point, we don't know why exactly Sheriff's Department decided to initiate this pursuit. It's interesting, though, because at one point they eventually decided to hand it off to CHP rather than holding on to the pursuit. That could be for any number of reasons, quite frankly, but that was an intentional decision on the part of the Sheriff's Department. At one point, I'm not sure if it even ended up on the freeway, but that would be the primary reason we would see CHP take it over. But as far as I know, I have not heard anything else about the original want, and quite frankly, haven't even heard what freeway he traveled on, maybe the 710 to get up from Bell Gardens. But in any event, he is continuing all the way south now, down Figueroa at 58th Street, a little more traffic once again, and then right around through another red light here, and look at all of those CHP units going right along with him. They obviously feel like they have the clearance to do so. They have no cross traffic, and so they will continue what is essentially, I don't want to say it's a slow speed pursuit, but it's certainly not a very high speed pursuit. At certain times, he's definitely stepped on the gas, specifically when he tried to evade that pit maneuver. But he's just kind of going along for the joyride here more than anything else. And hopefully, as we come up around the driver's side here, perhaps we'll be able to get a better glimpse through that driver's side window. I thought it was rolled down for a minute, but it looks like that driver's side window is rolled back up, and we can see clearly now a passenger possibly on the cell phone in that passenger seat. Right turn on Gage, and that is going to be a challenge as we continue to try and keep eyes on him. We're going to try and come around the south side of LAX's approach path over the 105 freeway and maybe gain some altitude here, but he is in kind of no man's land. It'll be interesting to see if LAX has the clearance in their airspace to allow law enforcement in there. It looks like California Highway Patrol is actually turning around. CHP is either orbiting. Okay, he's making a southbound turn on Hoover, I'm being told. That's why you see that CHP helicopter doing that orbit there. I was wondering if maybe he would have to turn around to avoid any airliners landing at LAX, but instead it looks like that suspect making a right turn, a southbound turn off of Gage onto Hoover, now heading southbound again on Hoover. Thank you. Florence. Looks like he just made an eastbound turn off of Hoover onto Florence. So now eastbound on Florence Avenue, CHP continuing to make that left with him, again heading back in the eastbound direction and once again heading back towards the freeway. Yep, coming back towards us, so we're making an about face now. We're turning around with them, going back up the Harbor Freeway, and it's really, you know, for us up here in Air 7 HD, it's like a cat and mouse situation. Another southbound turn now on Figueroa, and we will try and keep eyes on him again, but now he's passing us in the other direction. You can kind of tell just by the expert camera work by Rob Gluckman in the back of Air 7 HD right now, doing an amazing job of trying to keep eyes on this very squirrely driver, really just weaving his way through South LA and zigzagging these streets, taking these officers along for quite a joyride this afternoon. But unfortunately, it is just so dangerous when you consider all of the people who don't see this coming, whether it's pedestrians crossing the street or other motorists in this area. It is a very dangerous situation regardless. Just cruising, yeah. Eastbound Manchester, another eastbound turn, this time on Manchester Avenue, and that's going to put him on the opposite side. He's going underneath the 110 freeway, now coming out on the east side of the 110. He's going eastbound on Manchester, and we'll try and, it looks like he's going to come out on Main Street. That's going to be Main Street that we're looking at right there, through Main Street at a slow rate of speed. And those officers continuing right behind. Very difficult to see, but we are now turning around, trying to head back up Main Street. He made a northbound turn on Broadway. Off of Manchester. Well, in a situation like this, we kind of use that CHP helicopter as a little bit of a guide to kind of guide us in. You can see CHP flying below LAX's air traffic, able to stay out of air traffic control's way and continue to follow this pursuit. And from this angle, it looks like that helicopter is continuing northbound. That last turn was northbound on Broadway. I understand he's now approaching Florence Avenue again. If some of these street names sound familiar, trust your instincts. We have covered these streets several times over the course of this pursuit as he continues now northbound on Broadway. But we have been north and south several times now as he takes these officers along for this dangerous joyride. But you can see that CHP helicopter now orbiting the intersection of Broadway and Florence, just to the east of the Harbor Freeway. And you can see just from this angle here, traffic on the freeway much lighter on the northbound side, heavier on the southbound side. In any event, there you see He is continuing northbound on Broadway at 73rd, possibly showing signs of a turn here, or maybe just going through another red light, but they are continuing. You know, every time he goes through a red light, they run the risk of losing him because of the dangerous nature of going through a red light. So in this case, we have seen them continue to keep the pressure on even at these red lights as he makes these random turns, this time onto 73rd, I believe, eastbound Florence from Broadway. Very often that is an indicator. Something that we see all too often is they start to kind of zero in on an area that they're at least comfortable with, whether he resides here or knows people in this area or has some other connection to the neighborhood. It does seem like he is staying in the South L.A. neighborhood. He's had plenty of opportunity to get into other jurisdictions. He's had opportunities to get on the freeway, but he hasn't done that. He's staying with the streets, which are always more difficult to navigate if you're not familiar with the area. It's just a guess, but he may very well be familiar with this area and continuing eastbound Florence now at San Pedro Street. That's exactly right. And as this pursuit progresses, it really raises the stakes because he continues to break laws, he continues to go through these red lights, and it really lowers the chance of them just letting it go. At this point, it almost is a requirement for them to get him off the road one way or the other, and that puts everybody at risk. It puts the public at risk. It also puts those units right behind him at risk. And we're going on in excess of 30 to 40 minutes at least, by my count. I'm not exactly sure how long it's been, but it's now an extended period of time that same unit has been right behind him. At some point, CHP is going to have to swap out that primary unit with a new unit, a fresh set of eyes, and a fresh clear head to continue this pursuit safely if LAPD doesn't decide to eventually take it over. So one of two things are going to happen. Either they're going to hand this off to LAPD, but more than likely, California Highway Patrol and the Sheriff's Department possibly will have to get units into position here. Sorry, Jay, just stand by 1 second. And they will southbound Central, making a southbound turn from Florence. So now after passing underneath the 110 freeway, he's now made a southbound turn onto Central. Also, a street that he was on when we first tracked this pursuit. He took Central all the way down to Imperial Highway. So we're back on some very familiar territory with him, and he's basically circling this general area. Granted, it's a wide area of South LA that he's circling, but he is circling nonetheless, doing a complete loop around South LA. It's such a tricky thing. You know, it's a juggling act. As you mentioned, Mark, you've got CHP, you're very close to LA County Sheriff's jurisdiction, Compton's office, you've got Southgate PD, you've got LAPD. He's really traversing a number of different jurisdictions, and that might be the central reason why California Highway Patrol is just holding on to it for now. We will see. He's now made a southbound turn, I'm sorry, he was already southbound. Jay, you said he made another turn off of Central? Still southbound Central. Southbound Central at 83rd. We might get another glimpse here as we come down the 105. You see that airship orbiting right over him. Central and 83rd is the last intersection I have. So we will see how CHP decides to handle this. But as I was saying earlier, they may be in a position where they have to start getting units into position to swap out those units who have been following him this whole time. You just made a turn onto Manchester, so we might get that glimpse now. You made an eastbound turn onto Manchester, and I'm sorry, eastbound Manchester at Firestone. Manchester at Firestone. So we'll see. It looks like maybe the center of the screen, that line of trees, might be where he comes out of here. That is 92nd Street. So if we come towards us a little bit, and we'll see. There's Firestone and Hooper. Eastbound Firestone. So he is on Firestone now. Is that right, Jay? He's on Firestone? Firestone and Compton. Firestone and Compton Avenue. Honda CRV, newer model it looks like, and CHP looks like they're basically blocking traffic behind him now, something we also see very often for the safety of the rest of the traffic behind him. In this case, it looks like he's slowed down dramatically since we last saw him further west of here. Looks like he's almost maybe doing about 25, 30 miles per hour. That makes me wonder whether they will go ahead and give the go-ahead again for that pit maneuver if he's going slow enough. It looks like we're clocking him at just under 50 miles per hour, but that may very well be because that unit behind him is closing in. Every time that primary unit closes in on him to even show signs of pulling him over or spinning him out, he just presses the gas and then keeps on going, basically accelerates right out of the pit attempt. In this case, he is just continuing now eastbound on Firestone Boulevard, and they might have a situation here. Look at that. Firestone's completely empty, a wide open roadway. If he's going slow enough, we might see them come up behind him. Yep, and that puts him right back on a major here if he goes through Alameda Street, going through Alameda on Firestone Boulevard. So staying on Firestone, eastbound through Alameda Street, still fairly industrial, but a lot more traffic in general here as he continues eastbound. We'll get a little bit closer as he continues east, and that'll give us a much better view here in the next couple of minutes. It is. We are in Southgate's jurisdiction now, continuing eastbound on Firestone, trying to get a better shot in. Here we are. We're coming around now through Santa Fe Avenue. He's got the green light there. You referenced the passenger. We know that there's a passenger in the passenger seat. That's in addition to another passenger who jumped out of the vehicle earlier. So there must have been at one point at least 3 people in the car, and we don't know, there may very well still be more people in the back seat there. But in any event, he is still all over those lanes. He's not sticking with one lane. He is all over the paint and just dodging cars as he comes up on traffic here. Now looks like a southbound turn onto Long Beach Boulevard from Firestone Boulevard. So southbound on Long Beach Boulevard from Firestone, and still holding about 45 miles per hour. Westbound turn onto Capistrano Avenue off of he's westbound Tweedy. He's westbound Tweedy Boulevard. And I'm sorry, Jay, one more time. Yeah, westbound Tweedy. Yeah, westbound Tweedy off of Long Beach Boulevard, a much less traveled road than Long Beach Boulevard. I got to tell you, if he continued southbound on Long Beach Boulevard, he was going to hit a whole lot more commercial shopping and dining areas as he continues south. But fortunately, getting off at Tweedy Boulevard, westbound on Tweedy, and you can see California Highway Patrol actually looks like they're pulling back slightly. They're pulling back a little bit, giving him a little room to play with, and that may very well be intentional, trying to take the temperature off and maybe hopes that he slows down or thinks better of it. But I think maybe the speeds were picking up a little bit. That might be why they decided to pull back just ever so slightly. But they are still within eye shot and clearly still in hot pursuit with lights and sirens blaring. Hey, Jay, just stand by 1 minute. Thank you. Hey, Jay, can you hear me? Jay, can you hear me? Jay, you up? Jay. Jay, if you could hear me, please stop with the streets. I've got all the streets. I don't need any more streets. Please, please, please. Thank you. Yeah, now he's approaching. It looks like he's going to approach the 105 here. We're in Linwood, and he'll have another opportunity. He hasn't taken any of these freeway opportunities, but he will have the opportunity to get on the 105 freeway. Something tells me he's just going to continue south, and that will put us in a much more manageable airspace to continue following him south through Imperial Highway here. But it does look now that CHP has definitely fallen back a little bit. Compared to earlier, at least. He's doing about the speed limit, but still, you know, the reckless turn with him. This is going to be a westbound turn, Imperial Highway. Here earlier, granted a little further west of here, but he has been on Imperial Highway. In fact, that's exactly, I think, where we were when we first joined you off the top of the broadcast. So once again, continuing to stay on these same streets that he has been familiar with this entire time here. So certainly it seems like, speculation on my part, it certainly seems like this is familiar territory for him. He's definitely establishing a pattern. What they look for now is if it's a tight enough pattern. Obviously, he's traversed a very wide portion of South L.A., but if he tightens up his pattern, then you start to bring in the option for maybe a spike strip. If they can kind of predict the turns with a little more regularity, maybe they can get units in position and lay down a spike strip in anticipation of him making a left or right turn on the same streets over and over and over again. It's very challenging. You know, the spike strip is something we talk about a lot. When it's executed perfectly, it's really a remarkable thing because they are really the hardest tactic to employ. In this case, I think we're probably more likely to see a pit maneuver. In any event, it looks like he is now it looks like he's set to enter. He might be set to enter the freeway here. He's still on Imperial Highway. Okay, yeah, he's still on Imperial Highway, which goes which goes parallel with the 105 freeway. So that's the 105 freeway near the bottom of your screen, Imperial Highway, a block north of the 105, and a much more residential area now as he continues towards Watts, I think. And oncoming lanes of traffic going the wrong way again through this intersection. And that's a maneuver that CHP has to back off for. They can't just blindly follow him through into oncoming lanes of traffic. It looks like they have the clearance and they're able to maintain as they continue through that intersection. But if he does that at a high rate of speed through the wrong intersection, that's the opportunity that he has to lose them. That's the risk they run when they fall back. But they have to, for the safety of everybody involved. They can't just stay on his tail the whole time as he's running red lights. They have to pull back in certain situations in order to proceed safely. So that's what they're doing here. Once they pass through the intersection, you see them come back behind him. He sees a little bit of traffic and then gets into the wrong way. So, into the oncoming lanes of traffic going the wrong way. So once again, we're seeing that right here. A whole bunch of traffic there, some cross traffic. I can't tell whether it looks like he's got the red light. Clearly, everybody's got a red light there. They're all stopped. They hear the sirens. So I think maybe that cross traffic actually had the green light. They are stopping for those sirens, and now the pursuit continues safely through that intersection. It is unfortunately, it's a numbers game. If he continues to run through these red lights, eventually he's going to draw the wrong number and somebody could get hurt. Now, fortunately, we're not dealing with a high-speed pursuit, but as Mark mentioned earlier, even at slow speeds, anytime you're going through red lights and through stop signs at will, it is a dangerous situation. Here's a good shot through that driver's side window, getting a really clear angle now. It looks, I can't tell it, maybe you guys might have a better view with the monitor in there. I can't tell if it's a male or a female, both males. So it's two males. A male in the passenger seat still on the cell phone, and the driver just cruising along as if it's just an ordinary afternoon, coming up on yet another intersection here. Man, he is just taking these officers along for a joyride. And now we're right back to where we were earlier. Once again, this is going to take him right under the 110 freeway at the 105 and the 110. And if history is any indicator here, I would venture to say his next turn, if he does turn, is eventually going to be a northbound turn. He has yet to travel south of the 105. Look at that. Oh, a close call with that innocent motorist there as he made that random right. That's Broadway, turning off of Imperial Highway onto Broadway. I said it right there. It looked like he was going to make that northbound turn, and sure enough, he decided to make a right turn from the left lane and came within a hair of that sedan. I don't think they made contact there, but that's the risk they run. Very, very dangerous there. Almost got somebody hurt. Continuing now northbound on Broadway from the Imperial Highway, once again paralleling the Harbor Freeway. They're right behind him. Broadway's a little hit and miss. If he continues north on Broadway, it will become a little more commercial, a little more industrial, and they may have an opportunity with little traffic in their way. They may, I'm hoping, have an opportunity to execute a pit maneuver. That would be, I think, at this point, almost the best bet for everybody involved, unless he runs out of gas first. So we have no idea of knowing how much gas he started with. This has been going on for quite a while. But now northbound on Broadway, once he gets past this residential section, things could open up for CHP to try and execute a pit maneuver. You've got parked cars on either side there. You've got a large median, which is going to play into their favor here if there's no traffic. There is a little bit of traffic, and now it looks like he might be getting onto. Does that give him a ramp there, or is that just a left turn lane? No, he's just crisscrossing around to get around. I don't think he knows where he's going. He is literally making this up as he goes along. Literally making it up as he goes along. Now, continuing northbound through that red light, a major intersection there, Century Boulevard, northbound on Broadway, CHP with those same 5 units right behind him, keeping the pressure on and keeping everybody safe by having those lights and sirens. That's the other thing, is if they pull off, in some cases, they decide to pull off, right? But when you pull off, you lose the lights and sirens, which is a really big warning for everybody at the approaching intersections that there's police activity on the way, and to stop, slow down, or pull over to the right to let those emergency vehicles through. Without those lights and sirens, it becomes even more dangerous if he continues the driving and they don't have those black and whites right behind him. So the CHP doing an excellent job of staying right up behind him without any real accidents here yet. So far, they've been very lucky, but there we are. Look at this, in a much more commercial area, and hardly any traffic there, and he's going slow enough. I would venture to say they may try it at one of these intersections, or maybe not at the intersection. It wouldn't be at the intersection, quite frankly, but at one of these straightaways, they may very well give it a shot. A better place, right? Yeah, I wonder if that was while we were over it, or I'm guessing that was probably prior to us joining the pursuit, I would venture to say. But as he continues northbound on Broadway through 85th, you see him again heading away from us once again, since he's made his way back towards the 110 freeway. We are back in LAX's approach path, and that's why you'll see him start to drift out of our shot here in the next minute or two. If he continues northbound, very well may turn. Every time he's done this, he has indeed turned. In fact, the last few turns have always been to the east as he circles this neighborhood just east of the 110 freeway. But can we widen out just a second? I want to see if CHP's helicopter is still above. Is that CHP, Jose, or is that LAPD? Have they joined in? Is LAPD over it, or is that CHP? PD. So we have several law enforcement helicopters now overhead. LAPD's airship now joining this pursuit. From my perspective here, all of those cruisers are still California Highway Patrol. I think it would be a good bet at some point. LAPD, even though we haven't seen them in action yet, I'm sure they are kind of flooding this area and getting ready for an eventual takeover of this pursuit. But you can see he is now continuing northbound on Broadway at West 75th Street, off the nose there. Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly right. In fact, we've just been given clearance to go around, so we're going to come around the east side of the 110 freeway as he comes out the other side, that north side of the approach, as you mentioned. If he continues north, we'll be able to come around and pick it up further up towards MLK, closer to the University Park area. So we'll see if he stays on it, or, as I mentioned, in the past, he has made several right turns, including a right turn on MLK earlier in the pursuit. So he may be looking for another right to head into the Southgate area again. But again, it's just such a. These turns are just not predictable enough, at least from what I've seen, that they've been able to try a spike strip attempt in the last few minutes at least. But at one point, as Giovanna mentioned, they actually did have an opportunity. It just didn't work. Look at this. It turns out he's making a westbound turn. He turned into oncoming lanes of traffic. Now it looks like prepping for, no, he's just going around all of that traffic. Yep, through the red light, just to go through the red light, and with all of those CHP cruisers in tow there, he is now continuing up towards the East LA area. Or, I'm sorry, the downtown area rather. Thank you. Yeah, the northbound Broadway, slowing down at Vernon, making that right turn onto Vernon Avenue. Now have a clear shot of him as CHP continues. I thought for a minute he was going to continue into downtown LA. You know, the other trick in the book is to try and hide amongst the buildings in downtown. If he was to continue up Broadway, that was one possibility. In any event, he's made a right turn now onto Vernon Avenue, where traffic is sporadic, but you see a few cars at the light there, and just enough for him to squeeze around and come around through. Probably going to go through this red light here, and CHP kind of cruising through with him. He can't be doing more than about 40 miles per hour. In fact, we'll throw up that real-time speed tracker, and you can see, yeah, right about 30 miles per hour. You know, there was another stretch along Broadway there where I thought maybe they had the opportunity to close in on him, but they obviously did not think they had that opportunity. So the pursuit continues here. You just start to really, really worry as time goes on and his endurance level wanes. You know, all of these intersections, you see bicyclists now, you see other pedestrians, some people cheering them on, other people just strolling with their child. It is a dangerous situation. It's getting more dangerous by the second, even though we're not talking about a particularly high-speed pursuit. The only good news here is that as he continues, he's burning gas. He's burning more and more gas. Eventually, that will become a factor. We don't know what he started with. Certainly the CRV capable of decent gas mileage, but maybe showing signs of a right turn here at Avalon. No, just slowing down for the intersection there. Some motor officers coming up on that intersection. Those are LAPD motor officers. So again, they are in the area, they are in the vicinity, and at some point I expect that they will have an opportunity to take this over. I can tell you LAPD's airship is assisting the California Highway Patrol from the helicopter. Again, another red light with a little backup, and he goes right over the double yellow lines through this intersection in front of a school. In front of the school and continuing now, continuing eastbound at Wadsworth. So Vernon Avenue and Wadsworth Avenue is where we are. A little less traffic now, but as you approach these lights, he has established a pattern. He just goes right around it through the light. Oh, a handful at least. I mean, a variety of these streets, you can almost count them off. He's only been on a handful of major streets. He's not going down a lot of side streets, not a lot of obscure turns. He tends to go on to majors, from major to major, and he's avoided all the freeways at the same time. So he's not keen on freeways. Good idea considering the traffic on this Thursday afternoon. And he's not willing to venture into an unknown side street where he could end up on a dead end or something like that. He's just kind of going through these majors, going through the lights. I think he knows that his time is ticking down here. His hours or minutes are numbered. It's really just a matter of time at this point. The benefit of time is always on the side of law enforcement in a situation like this. You would just rather see it in a safer area, such as a freeway, where there's less risk involved. In a situation like this, especially with somebody driving so recklessly, it's an ongoing danger for everybody in these neighborhoods. It's a fair question, and as I mentioned, we've kind of skirted through a number of different jurisdictions. CHP fairly invested already in this. At some point, they may take it over, or there may be another reason why they're just letting California Highway Patrol maintain the status of primary agency here. In any event, they're working cooperatively together. You've got the helicopters from LAPD up above. You've got ground units from CHP. We have seen a couple of LAPD units at the ready at some intersections to assist in the takedown. But again, when you're going from jurisdiction to jurisdiction, you're kind of skirting between LA County Sheriff's Office and LAPD. California Highway Patrol is one of the best equipped agencies when it comes to pick qualified units too, and that sergeant has already given the go-ahead for a pit maneuver if the opportunity presents itself. Quite frankly, I'm not sure, and the question there would be, were there enough units in the pursuit at that point where one of them could pull off and chase down that passenger? That I don't know. It's an open question at this point. When that happens, it really helps. It helps in terms of gathering more intelligence on the identity of the suspect behind the wheel. Can they get a hold of a family member? Is there a phone number for a cell phone in the car where they can try and talk this person into some common sense? But in any event, we really just don't know at this point whether that person just managed to run away or whether they are talking to them. And from our vantage point, the behavior behind the wheel really has not changed since then. It's just a prolonged joyride. We really haven't seen him go above 50 miles per hour, and we see him slowing down, just kind of, looking for a turn, looking for opportunities. He's not really trying to hide. He's just kind of taking them along for a ride. We see sometimes where they stop at all costs to, just try and outrun the police. I don't think he's trying to outrun these units. He's just going along for the ride. Now making an eastbound turn onto Gage Avenue, coming up on Hooper Avenue. As we come back over further towards the east, we'll get a better view here down Gage Avenue, but he's traveling, can't be going above 30 miles per hour. Eastbound, and you see another officer there at that intersection, either ready to get involved or block traffic to keep other motorists away from this pursuit vehicle. But it looks like he is coming to a slow, he just kept going. So now eastbound through that intersection, again, still on Gage Avenue. Yeah. Yeah, back in the Southgate Huntington Park area, which quite frankly, I'm sorry. Yeah, and that's the thing is that, like I said, at some point and it may have already happened. In fact, it looks like they have swapped out primary units. If you noticed a little bit earlier, it was I believe, one of the Ford Explorers that was the primary unit behind him. Now they have swapped out with a new crew. California Highway Patrol, still the lead agency here, and they have swapped out those members with a fresh set of eyes to continue this pursuit. That's the other thing that law enforcement has at their advantage. They have endless amounts of resources if they really want this guy, and it certainly appears that they definitely do because of the dangerous nature of the driving. But he is going to start getting tired, whereas CHP has the ability to just swap out units, and regardless of regardless of endurance, they can continue the pursuit. Another southbound turn onto Holmes here. Thank you. Look at that. Another officer coming right, CHP unit coming right up on that intersection. Yep. So we're kind of getting away from that South LA area now as he makes his way through the Florence Avenue, eastbound on Florence Avenue at Albany Street. He's getting much closer to where all of this originated earlier this afternoon, into the Bell Gardens area eventually, if he continues in this direction. So we're kind of getting away from, again, the Southgate area and the neighborhoods point west of the 110 freeway, where he was really posing a challenge for us to keep up with him because of the LAX airspace. We've now made our way considerably further east, and again, much closer to the Bell Gardens area, and we will see if they happen to get involved, because it started in their jurisdiction. They may very well not. At this point, it almost seems as though that the CHP is just best equipped at this point to keep this pursuit going, and they haven't shown any sign at all of letting him go. They often will pull back. They will 1022 the pursuit. That's the code for canceling the pursuit when things get too dangerous, and certainly we've seen this pursuit get a bit dangerous at times, but I think the speed is the key factor here. The speeds have been manageable enough that they can safely maintain a visual, stay behind him, and hopefully get him and his passenger into custody. But a southbound turn now onto Pacific Boulevard, or is that Walnut Street? Just turned off of Florence onto Pacific, and now continuing south We'll see. That's a little bit of a curveball here. This will put him in an entirely new area if he continues southbound here. You know, there's so many different reasons. I mean, sometimes it's as simple as logistics. In other situations, there's politics involved. In other situations, it's just a matter of convenience. There really is there is rhyme or reason. I don't want to say it's you know it's a negotiated thing many times. In this situation, there's a lot of coordination going on between all of those agencies that we've been mentioning, and certainly, as you mentioned, they are all monitoring. They're all prepared to assist the California Highway Patrol if this comes to an end in their jurisdiction. So they're following along on their police radio. I'm often told that they're watching Eyewitness News on TV, and that this is really the primary way that they kind of just keep tabs of what's going on in their own backyard, so that they know what they may be up against. In this case, you know, we have been on a lot of state roads. CHP isn't only responsible for the freeways. There are a lot of state routes that run through our cities that are also technically in California Highway Patrol's jurisdiction. But I think just from a logistic standpoint, it's a guess on my part. I think logistically it just makes a lot of sense for the CHP to handle this, at least at this point. That could change, but at this point, CHP has a really good handle, and I think the reason they're keeping up with it is because the speeds have been just slow enough that they can do so safely. I think if the speeds started to get out of control, the tactics would change dramatically. But with all the airships overhead, you've got those units on the ground, there's very little chance of him getting away. About 30% of these suspects do get away, but rarely when the helicopter is overhead during the day in a situation like this. There is very little chance of this person managing to get away. There are exceptions, but in this case, I think it's just a matter of time. By the time he either runs out of gas, either runs out of energy, is talked to by either somebody on the phone, or eventually maybe a pit maneuver, which I think we're all looking out for. We know they've already tried a spike strip attempt. I think a pit maneuver is going to be the likely end of this pursuit. There's another person following along on their cell phone, and that's the other thing. As the length of the pursuit goes on, you have more and more people getting the notifications on their phone, lots of people getting breaking news alerts and citizen alerts on their phone. They know this pursuit is in their neighborhood, and too many times recently we just see them decide to come out and catch a glimpse if not, try and catch some video of this pursuit. Always good for a few hundred likes if you get the right shot, but really, it's just not advised. It's unsafe to come out and try and participate in this in any way whatsoever. I mean, you saw that woman right there on the sidewalk. What if he jumped the curb and lost control off, off of the street into the sidewalk? We've seen it happen, and we've seen people get hurt, and that's the risk that they run the longer this pursuit goes on. We are back on Long Beach Boulevard, northbound Long Beach Boulevard at Ardmore, as we now head away. He was in Linwood, now getting away from the Linwood area, back in Southgate, which is where we have spent a predominant amount of time in the Southgate area. But speed still well below 50 miles per hour, basically doing the speed limit almost this entire pursuit. Yeah, and once again, continuing back up the same stretch that he was on before, back into the Southgate area, which again, it's really anybody's guess at this point because these turns have been so random. But a lot of time, again, in Southgate, not sure if he is familiar with this area, but this is the neighborhood where I think that passenger stopped and got out of the vehicle. I think it was in this vicinity where the passenger exited the vehicle. Look at this, a wild turn there. Oh, that was a spike attempt. A spike attempt, that's how predictable it was. That was how predictable it was. Unfortunately, he was able to weave around it, but this is a pattern that he has established, so much so they actually had the opportunity to lay one down there. Unfortunately, it didn't work, but we'll see if they try it again. Might be going into a shopping mall here. All right, pulling coming head to head with that CHP cruiser. They may try and wipe him out here. No. Wow, he was able to squeeze by that. Here comes the pit. Here comes the pit if he picks up a little speed. You also can't go too slow for a good pit maneuver either. You have to be going right in that sweet spot of 15 to 30 miles per hour. If he's too slow, that will not flip the inertia switch and the vehicle will still be able to move. So we'll see if they come up here. There's a narrow stretch of residential street here, a lot of parked cars, but it looks, there it is, there it is, and the vehicle stopped, and that's it. They know it's over. Hands out the window. The passenger and driver with their hands out the windows that are rolled down. They were ready for it. They knew that this was the end, and that officer with a textbook pit maneuver at the end of this pursuit at California Street and Seville Avenue. Now it is just a matter of executing a felony stop. The K-9 unit ready in case things go sideways, but it certainly appears that these two, at least the two that we know of, not sure if there's anybody in the back seat, but we know of these two suspects now ready to give themselves up with their hands, at least the passenger hands out the window, and I saw the driver at one point with his hands out the driver's side window as well. This Honda CRV at gunpoint now, 2 K-9 units on the scene down there, and they are going to give these suspects very specific instructions as they perform this felony stop. That's right. The car is still on. The car's still on. There, yeah. That car unfortunately is going to go into the. Okay. They don't care about the car. They want to see him out of the car. He's trying to stop the car, thinking he could maybe save that person's house. But in any event, he needs to get out of that driver's seat and comply with those officers. You see the passenger doing the right thing there, proned out on the pavement, and now is that the driver? The driver crawling out of the passenger side after shutting down the vehicle. The driver shutting down the vehicle, now crawling out of the passenger door. Not sure what was wrong with the door, but in any event, you're right. That canine is a very intimidating show of force. Yep. Can't blame him. And they will give the code for here in just a second. Now that they that's right. Yeah, fortunately, I mean, it was an hour-long pursuit. Yep, sorry. Thank you. Ten four. Copy, copy. We have about, what, 15 minutes? We got about 20 minutes. 20 minutes. Thank you, Jay. Have a good night. I will talk to you tomorrow.